Here to discuss today the 7 barriers to your financial future. So in addition to serving and advising financial planning clients for over 30 years, Legacy Financial Group has the pleasure of really partnering with local organizations, also in delivering financial education programming, as well as providing one-on-one consultations. So as we kind of get started here too, again, we're going to be covering today the 7 barriers of our financial futures. We're going to share some sound financial concepts, and it really helps bring more clarity and confidence to our financial futures. We'll have some time for some Q&A, and again, feel free to fill up the chat box there. But then also too, if you're just watching this later on as a recording, feel free also to shoot me an email with any questions that pop up. There'll be a one-on-one consultation that's available as well as a financial plan, which we'll talk about that later on in the programming. But really, when it comes to our barriers in finances, what barriers are out there that are preventing you from achieving your financial goals and your dreams? We'll discuss those common barriers that people face in trying to achieve their financial goals. We'll also explore today how these barriers can affect our finances and discuss some of the practical tips and strategies that we can use to kind of overcome those. And really, whether you're just getting started in your financial journey or whether you've been working towards your goals for some time, we'll provide some insights and practical advice to help to navigate those barriers that stand in the way of our financial future. And really, when it comes to our financial lives, everybody has questions, okay? Everyone has something in front of them that they're just not sure about. We're going to cover a lot of stuff today in the next 45, 50 minutes or so, but that time still, it's not enough. It's not enough to cover everything, okay? So again, as questions pop up, feel free to use me as a resource. And when I say that, use me as a resource, I mean it, okay? I understand challenges and frustrations of trying to find a trusted resources that's willing to help, okay? Because that was me 25 years ago. I had gone to business school, okay, but I hadn't gone to business school to become a financial planner at that time. Honestly, at that time, I didn't even know what a financial planner was. My family didn't have a financial planner. Okay, my family wasn't great at finances. But while I was in college, okay, I'd lost my dad to a medical complication, and my mom a couple years later to cancer, and they both left my brothers and I, a small amount of life insurance money, not a lot by any means, but I tried to reach out for help. Okay, I had some questions about, what to do. So I reached out to a couple of financial companies. My 401k or retirement plan at the time didn't offer a whole lot of help outside of the company retirement plan. They could help me with that, but they wouldn't give me much more holistic advice there. I contacted a couple local firms, and I could tell they either trying to sell me some form of life insurance, okay, or I just frankly didn't have enough assets for them to be interested in working with me. That was a reality. So I couldn't find a trusted resource that was really willing to help me. Those life events had started me on the kind of DIY path of doing it myself, right? I didn't have any resource, so I was left to myself. I didn't have anybody to ask, so I just started learning, okay? Fortunately, I developed a passion for financial planning and personal finance, and I read a lot, and I was learning really all I could. And that kind of became a hobby of mine. I also found out that I was a little bit weird. Okay, most people's hobbies isn't reading financial stuff, but I enjoyed that. Again, I was wired for that. I learned that. So my hobby eventually led me to becoming a financial planner. The holistic financial planning isn't something that I've just studied. I've been living and implementing the principles of financial planning personally for over 20 years. Okay, and through life events like marriage, which really, when you think about marriage, it's no wonder that's a challenge with finances, because you've got two people with different histories of money coming together, right, to share finances. That's a stress point in a lot of relationships. Buying our first house, having some job changes, some challenging medical diagnosis in our family, trying to balance raising kids, these life events, working through. Now my kids are 14 and 17, and I'm trying to teach them and model, healthy finances for them as well, trying to prepare them for independence, helping My wife now with her aging parents, we're working through those situations. And again, trying to find balance in all of this by trying to pay for yesterday and enjoying today, and at the same time, saving for our financial future. So again, since starting my career though at Legacy Financial Group years ago, really what I've learned is that most people, they don't share the same hobbies and passions around this stuff. This type of stuff makes people nauseous, or they just feel so overwhelmed. But again, I love walking alongside my clients and in their financial lives and to help them achieve financial goals and bringing more clarity and confidence to again their financial future. So again, my passion is, the reason I'm here today, because my passion is educating people, it's serving people and helping lead others as well. So again, helping to lower barriers for people trying to access that financial planning help. So when I say, again, use me as a resource, I mean it, okay? But today's program, it's strictly educational, okay? We're gonna cover lots of stuff here, but it's not specific individual advice or legal, financial, or tax advice. We're going to cover a lot of different areas, but again, today is education, okay? I encourage you, though, to consult appropriate professionals regarding your individual circumstances when it comes to finances, legal, and tax, okay? But what does it mean to have financial wellness, okay? Well, it's a process. Financial wellness is a process, like a lot of things, like a lot of aspects in our life. It's a process. You can kind of fill in the blank here and really put any of these in here. We'll put financial, right? But it's a process of learning how to successfully control day-to-day and month-to-month finances, okay? It's being able to absorb a financial shock, okay? When, coronavirus shuts down the world, right? How does your finances, are your finances set up to absorb something like that? Or when the markets have huge swings, right? And being on track to meet financial goals. Again, being able to make financial choices that allow us to enjoy life, okay? And again, you can insert emotional wellness into any of these categories here too. And remember, it's okay to ask for help, because unless financial, legal, or taxes is something that you do for a living, you're not expected to know everything there is that applies to that. Again, the same thing applies though to other aspects of our life, whether it be physical or emotional. Again, when it comes to my physical wellness, my physical health, I'm not a doctor, right? So I go to one when I need a doctor, right? I just got to realize, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not feeling right. I need to go talk to somebody, right? So again, I just expect when I go to the doctor, I expect them to be able to know, and or find the resources to help find those answers. Now, when it comes to the state of our personal finances, I don't think you got to look far to see statistics that are out there. We see these all the time. But just to review a few, half people out there feel stuck in their finances and they feel that they can't get ahead. About 60% of people, they're not real optimistic about their financial future. About 56% of people feel that they're behind on their retirement savings. And about 22% of people have actually cut back on retirement savings. Recently, with all the market fluctuation and inflation, people have cut back on saving. Right? So again, there's a lot of challenges that are out there when it comes to finances. So as we jump into the barriers today, the number one barrier that we talk about today, and they're not necessarily weighted in particular order, they could be weighted differently for everybody, but the number one goal we'll talk about today, or the number one barrier, is not having any goals, right? If you plan a trip, right, are you just going to start off driving south? If we want to go to Florida and just start driving south, how's that going to work for us, right? It's not going to work so well. No, I mean, when we plan a trip, we set goals. We have a starting point. We have an ending point, and we kind of figure out how long it takes to get there and where do we need to go, what turns we need to make to get there, right? Well, why is our financial life different? Our financial life is different. People just start going, right? We don't really set where we're at and set where we're going and figure out all the details in between. Financial life, we learn that as we go, okay? But when it comes to goals too, if it's really important goal, right? If it's something that's that important, it's worth writing down, So if you have goals, they got to be in writing. And not only just in writing, they got to be listed in specific details, okay? Because otherwise, a goal without a plan, that's just a wish, right? I mean, we can dream about a financial future, dream about a retirement, but if we don't set any goals, we're not going to get there. Also, you want to focus on what you want. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Newton. I was there, the Newton Raceway. I was there, it's probably been 10 or 15 years. And they have a driving experience there, right? Where you can, it had a Groupon at the time. It wasn't much, it was maybe like $100 or $120 or something, where you could drive an actual NASCAR. They had NASCAR cars that they stripped some of the stuff out of and had them on the track there. They did have some governors and limited them a little bit, but it was a race car, right? And I was out there and they give you a little instruction beforehand. And then they have the headset so they can kind of talk to you to make sure that you're not hitting other drivers that are out there. They had you spaced out, so you weren't really racing anybody. But I remember them saying is that because you're going at a faster speed, whatever you're looking at, that's where you're going to go. Okay. And I remember once I got my speed up, I remember the person in the radio tower in my ear saying, Scott, you're going to hit that wall, right? Because I was looking at the wall. I was going so fast. I was looking down. I'm looking at the wall. They said, you're going to hit the wall, because that's what I was looking at. They said, in the little training, they said, look to the inside of the track. And once I looked to the inside of the track, that's where I ended up going, right? So again, when it comes to our goals, whatever we're focused on, that's where you're going to end up going, okay? So when it comes to goals too, how do you achieve something if you don't really know where you're aiming, right? If we need to get out of debt or save for a house or save for retirement, we need to focus on those. Okay, that's where we'll end up going. But if we're not focused on those, we're not going to make it. Also, when we're heading towards our goals too, we need to make adjustments because things change, don't they? Think about your financial life today. Is it different than it was 5 years ago? Yeah. Is it different than it was 10 years ago? Sure was. Next 5 years, next 10 years. We can definitely set goals. We got to have a plan and set actionable goals in between, but we also need to make adjustments, okay? Because even with well-established goals, life's not gonna happen precisely as planned, okay? There's gonna be lots of transitions in life that we're gonna need to make adjustments and reestablish our goals. Kind of like a GPS, right? You get going in a certain direction and you get off track, it starts recalculating, right? Or just because we have a goal, like when we set a road trip, right? You've got a road trip planned. Just because you hit a construction, it's not like you're going to turn around, right? You're just going to make some adjustments. You need to redirect to make sure that you get to your goal. There's times we need to, again, make sure that we're revising our plan. And, most people, honestly, they spend more time planning their annual vacations, right, than planning for retirement. But retirement, because, things change, again, over time, we've got to make some adjustments. There's going to be curveballs that happen in our life that we need to adjust for, right? When it comes to goals as well, what's the goal, right? The American dream. I want to become a millionaire, right? So a lot of people don't feel like that is within reach anymore, okay? Majority of people have kind of fallen for that myth that in order to be a millionaire, though, that they need to have a big income or come from a rich family or something like that. Well, a recent study from Ramsey Solutions, the study determined how millionaires gain their wealth and what factors were necessary for the average person, right, in America to reach a millionaire status. Most of them did it through consistent investing, right, avoiding debt, okay, and smart spending. There's no lottery tickets, no big inheritance, not huge six-figure incomes. It was more about consistency versus the instant gratification. Okay. So, and looking at some of the stats there too, 80% of people, they use their company retirement plans. 75% of people, also did outside investing, outside of the company plans. Millionaires also in the study, they weren't born, okay? Or they're not born, right? They didn't just receive everything. Almost 80% of them didn't receive any inheritance. 20% of them receive some inheritance, but about 80% of that, they come from families with, middle or below middle income levels. We found that millionaires don't always make big bucks, right? Only about a third of the people averaged over $100,000 a year. About a third never made more than six figures in any single year. It's more about that, tortoise and the hare, right? Slow and steady wins the race. It absolutely does. It's also that I don't know if anybody's ever read The Millionaire Next Door or heard of that book, but that was a study of first generation millionaires, kind of like the Ramsey Solution study of millionaires, right? The Millionaire Next Door, what it found was that people place more value in accumulating wealth than displaying their wealth, right? They had more margin in their life. They lived in homes that were modest, right? They could afford bigger homes and newer cars. They just chose not to. Okay. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Dale Schroeder, but he's an Iowan, actually. Years ago, I think it's about 15 or so years ago. Dale was, he grew up poor, right, in Iowa, and he never married, didn't have any kids. He was a carpenter. He worked all his life till 67 for the same carpentry firm. But he was that millionaire next door. He didn't display wealth, right? He lived below his means, substantially below his means, okay? But what he left in his will was about $3 million in savings to send 33 underprivileged kids to college, okay? So for him, the dream, it wasn't about, again, it was accumulating wealth, but for him, it wasn't for him. He wanted to make a more lasting impact in other people. But, even somebody like Dale can accumulate $3 million. Now, again, that maybe is a little bit more of the extreme side of things, right? Really minimizing. And I think he had like 2 pairs of jeans. One he wore to church on Sunday, one he wore to work, right? He drove an old rusty Chevy pickup truck. Displaying wealth was not important to him. His goal was more about accumulating and passing it on to the next generation. But so again, just a couple ideas on how to get there. But don't be fooled too, right? Don't be fooled that don't fall for that myth that money's everything. I don't think I'm telling anything that people don't really know if they think about it, but money's not everything. It can buy a bed, but it can't buy sleep, right? Buy a clock, but can't buy time. That's a slippery slope. Again, money's a tool, right? Money can absolutely solve a lot of challenges, okay? But it's a slippery slope. Money's not everything, okay? Barrier number 2, the lack of knowledge. That's absolutely a barrier. 75% of people are winging it when it comes to their financial future. They don't really paying attention or trying to learn about how, or really understand how investments are working. They don't really pay attention to how consumption today is impacting their financial future, and understanding, again, the importance of living within their earned income. Nowadays, you can Google about anything, right? There's tons of information that's out there, almost too much information. You can Google, should I contribute to a Roth or traditional IRA? And you'll see lots of articles that have make a meaningful argument for both sides of that. Well, but it depends. It depends on your particular situation, right? So again, 1, it's knowledge, but then 2, it's getting advice or understanding that information so you can take action on that advice as well. When it comes to personal finances too, it's about 20% of his knowledge though, and about 80% of it is how we actually, do we implement it, okay? And the best advice that's out there too is the advice that you actually take action on. So you got to be able to read something, understand it, and be able to take action, okay? Also, when it comes to the knowledge piece of it, it's also understanding opportunity, right? Understanding the opportunity that we all have in front of us. You can use your camera phone to, open up the camera app and just scan, hover over the QR code and click on that. It'll take you to a calculator where you can calculate how much money you'll make in your remaining working career, okay, to help give you a little bit more knowledge around your particular situation so you can understand the opportunity. And you can plug in, your current age, and the future retirement date, assuming maybe a 3% increase each year in salary or something like that. When you look at that too, you can look at, say, somebody that's 40 years old that's earning $60,000, they'll work for another 25 years, right? So $60,000, that goes up 3% every single year. But for the next 25 years, compounding, right? It just adds on, 60,000 next year, 60,000 plus 3%, and on and on. That's over $2 million, So understanding the opportunity that somebody may have that has $2 million that's going to pass through their hands in their remaining working career. It's understanding, how to build a proper structure around that, because money loves structure. Without structure, money's fleeting. Just think of lottery winners, they go broke within, some of them go broke within a few years of big win because they don't have structure. We'll also only be able to accumulate as much wealth as our structure allows. If we don't have a good structure, we're not going to keep the money, right? We're not going to be able to have a structure that again, pays for yesterday, enjoys today, and saves tomorrow, right? Having a structure can make a huge impact, because if you don't understand how to utilize the resource you have, you'll never have enough. There's never enough money if we don't know how to properly have a structure around that. Another thing is understanding the exponential power of compound interest, the knowledge of understanding compound interest. And, this one was for me when I was in business school and took a math and finance class and learned compound interest. As just the numbers just didn't make sense, because in my head, I could do basic math of, say $50,000 a year, 10% of that, is 5,000. Okay. So saving 5,000 for the next, 30 years, right? 150,000, right? I can wrap my head around that. But when you're running calculation around compound interest, I just kept scratching my head. I was like, how is this right? How is it that this amount becomes that amount? But that's understanding, again, the power of compound interest. Compound interest is interest upon interest, right? You have $1,000 that earns, 5%. So that's $50, you earn this year. Now, next year, you have $1,050 that earns 5%, right? And each year, that interest upon interest upon interest grows exponentially. A good rule to kind of think about there too is a rule of 72 application, to kind of get a sense of compound interest. It's 72 divided by a rate of return. So if you have stocks in this scenario here, 72 divided by 8 is 9, right? So if you're 40 and you're invested in stocks in this scenario here, right? And every 9 years, your money that's invested will double. Okay, that's compounding. But on the other side of the coin too, if we are only investing super conservatively and only get the 2% return, well, it's going to take 36 years to 72 divided by 2, 36. It could take 36 years for our money to double. So part of it is the knowledge, again, around how are we investing, right? One, what's the goal for the account? If the goal for the account, like a checking or short-term savings account, is for an emergency fund or, a vacation this summer, right? That money, its job needs to be done in the next 6 months or maybe a year, right? Well, that money should not be in something that's volatile. Okay, it shouldn't go up and down. It should be in the safe side of the world. Okay. But also on the other side of the coin, if we have an account that we're investing for retirement, and retirement's even, 10 or 20 years away, well, should we be investing super conservative for that? We should be maybe have a little more exposure to risk, have a little more exposure to growth. But then also, as we shift closer to our goal of, say, retirement in 20 years, we should maybe make some adjustments to those allocations. But also at the same time, even if you're retiring, say, tomorrow, it's not like you need all your retirement funds tomorrow, though, do you? So we should be investing for the short term. Part of our retirement account should be invested for the goal ahead, but also for retire, we should be investing for hopefully a long retirement of 20 or 30 years. So yeah, well, some of our retirement account, should be for that short term, 1 year, and then maybe, some bonds for, years 2 to 5 for sake of discussion, but anything beyond 5 or, 5 to 10 years or more, we can maybe be a little exposed to a little more risk and reward. Okay. So again, understanding the knowledge a little bit around investing, because when you look at investing too, here's an example of the S&P 500, okay, 500 publicly traded companies over the last 50 years averaged a over 10% return, okay? Again, rule 72 divided by 10, 7.2 years, money would double on average if it stayed invested. If you're pulling the money out because you get nervous, well, you're missing upside there, right? Over the last 50 years also, has there been things to worry about being invested? Yeah. Has there been wars to worry about? Yeah. Has there been political parties to worry about? Sure. Has there been viruses? Yeah. How about banks? Yep. Lots of it. Okay. But what you see here too is the market has never gone down. Being a historian of the markets here, the markets have never gone down and failed to recover and then go on to make new highs, right? But also they've never gone and make new highs and not gone back down again, right? But again, up and down, up and down. Here's COVID. I mean, a small blip on the screen over the long run, and this is where we're at today, right? Market's most recent high was about January of 2022. Currently, the end of April of 2023, the market had been down in last October as much as about 25%. Now we're up, up about 15% from October, but the market's still overall down. We have no reason to believe that the market's not going to continue to recover and then go on to make new highs, right? But also, we have no reason to believe that once that happens, at some point in the future, it'll go down again, right? So it's more about, again, understanding the longer term. You think about bull markets and bear markets. The markets spend more time in bull going up than bear markets going down. A good analogy here too is kind of like a yo-yo, right? Playing with the yo-yo. I don't know if everybody played this yo-yo, as a kid, right? The fact but are we watching the yo-yo, right? Are we watching the investments daily is like looking at the yo-yo. It goes up and down every single day, right? But if you're on a yo-yo, playing with the yo-yo on an escalator, right? Just because the fact that the yo-yo goes up and down doesn't prevent it from going up over time, right? So it's more about understanding a little bit more. Are you watching the markets? Are you watching the yo-yo, or you're watching it go up over time, right? So more about having that allocation to kind of ride through market pullbacks, So again, we got to have some of the safety side of the world, some that's exposed to growth over the long run. But when it comes to our finances too, one of the mistakes people make, I think, or a big mistake I know people make, is they generalize things, right? Don't generalize it. See where you're actually at, right? And understand the power of compound interest in your specific situation. Not Sally Sue started, at this age and she invested X, and then, John invested X at this age, he ended up here. Sure, great for Sally Sue and John, okay? No, plug in your information so you know how it impacts your specific life and understand the power of compounding, right? You can scan this QR code later on and go to a financial calculator out there. And you can look at, whether you have a company retirement plan that you contribute to, or your spouse is contributing to in their plan. I think a fair amount of people maybe have IPERs, and that's that all this is happening kind of behind the scenes. You don't have a lot of impact on that other than the baseline that you're plugging in and then the match you're getting from the IPER system. But again, doing some investing on your own outside of IPERs is always a great idea. Okay. But understanding what, say a 10% contribution, right, based on your salary. Okay. And annually, that salary goes up 3% a year. Okay. And if you do that over, say, a 30-year time frame, depending on your age now and stopping point of investing at some point in the future, and your starting point of what you have right now at a realistic annual return. Again, if you're completely wide open exposed to the market, historically the market's done, S&P's done 10. That's not a guarantee it'll happen in the future. So when we're planning our finances, it's better be pessimistic, okay, when we're planning, but also be a little realistic, right? I wouldn't put a 3%, but it's kind of foolish to plug a 10 or 12% in there, because should that not happen, you're not going to get there, right? So 6-7%, if you're investing properly, is not a bad number to plug in. But so say we're just doing that. Well, where are we going to end up? Okay, that'll plug that in. But then also, what if you increase, say your starting point is 10%, right? But then every year as you get a pay raise of 3%, I'm not saying save the whole 3%. Could. I'm just saying save 1%. Save 1% of future pay raises. That's 1 penny, right? 1% of a dollar is a penny. So could you save a penny of every dollar that you make? I'd argue most people probably could. But what does it make a difference? So that's this 1 penny, 1 more percent. If you start at 10, okay, without a contribution accelerator, like adding 1% a year, we're going to end up at in this scenario about $770,000. But over 30 years, if you're increasing 1% a year, 10% this year, 11% next year, then 12% the following year, 13, 14, 15, just 1% of every pay raise every year, you'll get up to 20% compounding, right? That's a difference of about $500,000 by saving 1 penny more of every dollar you make every year. Pretty small thing to do, but exponentially. Again, you can't do that math in your head, right? So utilize calculators that understand your specific situation. That was compound interest working for us. Okay. Now we have debt. Okay. Debt is absolutely another barrier. It's a lot of ways that we accumulate our stuff, right? But debt simply means buying something unneeded at a price you can't afford with funds you don't have, right? I like this little quote here too, that not everyone realizes this, but if you clean the pile of receipts, out of your purse or wallet or wherever you keep them, stack them all together, okay, it makes a tiny little bit book, right, about why you're broke. So, debt it's a huge barrier that most people have challenges with. Well, why is that? Well, because we're trained. As Americans, we're trained, okay, with debt. It's about monthly payments versus actual costs, isn't it? You look at a car or a home or something like that, it's like, what kind of payment do you want? It's all about payments. But if you knew the actual cost, would you buy it, right? If you calculate all the payments, right? But we're lulled into complacency by payments, okay? Again, that's a dangerous place, is debt. So it's a stressful for most people. It's also hard to build our net worth bucket. Okay. When we're putting assets in the top, trying to build our net worth bucket, if we've got high interest rate debt, it's like holes in our bucket. It's just hard to fill that up when we got big holes of high interest rate debt. What's a better investment? Should we invest or should we pay off debt? Well, paying off debt is a guaranteed after-tax return, right? So if you take $3,000 and pay off 18% debt, that's an 18% return, versus say an average 10% stock market return, right? Over the long run, again, paying off debt is absolutely a great investment. And again, everybody's situation is unique. And interest rate is it's a math equation, right? Whether if we have a low interest rate mortgage, okay, that 2 or 3%, and we are getting 4 or 5 right now in CDs, well, that's a math equation that says, no, let's not pay off a low interest rate, right? But high interest rate debt, yeah, that absolutely need to take care of high interest rate debt. That's a huge barrier. Here's a tool, again, a free tool to use. It takes you out to a calculator that is a debt elimination plan, right? Again, don't just speculate or generalize. Plug in your information. And it's not capturing your data or anything like that. It's just a calculator, okay? But put a plan together for yourself to eliminate debt, okay? Well, the main strategy here is, listing all your debts, paying the minimum on everything except for the lowest balance, okay? And then taking all extra resources, if you can save, even just $10 a day equates to about $300 a month, right? If you can throw a couple $100 extra at that lowest principal balance and get that paid off faster, then you take that $300 plus that minimum payment, and then now go to the next lowest balance. It's a snowball. It's a debt snowball, right? We're using compounding and compound interest to our advantage in paying off debt. You could also, in this calculator, you could toggle back and forth to say, well, what if I paid off my highest interest rate first versus my lowest balance? And you can see which one. You can do whichever one you want. I kind of like paying off the lowest balance first, because then it's easier to get quick wins, right? You got to win that feeling of accomplishment when you pay off a debt and cancel that debt and close that account. Okay. And this is using the power of compound interest, compounding to our advantage. Okay. Einstein was famous for a lot of things, but one of the things he was famous for was a quote about compound interest that he said that the compound interest was the eighth wonder of the world, that those who understood compound interest, they earn it, right, in their investments. Those who don't understand it, they pay it. And it makes sense, so use the power of compounding to your advantage. In this scenario, right, you just pay the minimum payments over time. In this scenario, it's going to take you about 18 years. If you could round up a couple $100 extra and throw it towards that and snowball that, compound that, you can pay that off in about half the time. Okay. Then once you got that paid off, again, use that to your advantage. The debt you were paying to a finance company, pay it to yourself, pay it to your future self, right? And start investing that money. Had you invested that money over time, in that same amount of time of paying the minimum versus snowballing that, you could save about $200,000. So again, use this tool to put together a debt elimination plan for yourself. Taxes. How much did you pay in taxes last year? Well, we just did taxes recently, right? This is actually bear number 4, not 3, but anyways, so how much do you pay in taxes? Well, look at that, right? Not just what you owe or what you got back, but look at your paycheck, federal, state taxes, right? Because a lot of times, though, we're kind of conditioned to looking at tax time as, I got money back, right? Well, that's just the intoxication. That's the euphoria of getting a tax refund until you realize that was your money to start with. It's like if you go to Costco and buy $300 worth of stuff, but you give them $500, you didn't get a $200 refund, right? You just got your money back, okay? But we're all conditioned to just look at, and you can probably think about what you did the previous year and a year or two ago. I generally get about this amount back, or that much I generally pay. Don't look at just that. Look at your total tax bill. Look at the tax return and look at your total federal taxes, right? That was withheld from your paycheck. Look at your total state taxes that was withheld from your paycheck. This time of year in April, we're doing tax preparation, right? Or have done tax preparation. Should be done by now, right? A couple weeks ago. But tax preparation, that's like looking in the rearview mirror. But where do you to guide where do you go? Where do you look at? Right? Do you look in the rearview mirror? Or do you look in the out the front of the dashboard and the out the windshield? Tax preparation is looking at last year and plugging down the information, and that's it. Okay, not doing anything. We're just looking backwards. Okay, look at your total tax bill. Don't let taxes just simply happen. Look at where we're going. That's called tax planning, right? Look at your current taxes now. Look at your income now, right? Or is our income going up or is it going down, right? Understand kind of where we're headed in our taxes, right? And also, we don't do taxes just once in our lifetime. We do it every year, don't we? So take what not what you got back or what you paid, look at your total tax bill, right? Your total taxes withheld out of your paycheck, right? And take that times 10. Or take that times 20, right? Depending on how long you have to work. It's kind of like calculating things too, right? Look at your total lifetime tax bill. Here's just an example, right? But if we look at, say, 60 or 40, okay, and we're going to work for 25 years, we're earning $60,000. We're going to earn over $2 million of wages, okay? But when you calculate federal tax, state tax, and also FICA tax, which are Medicare and Social Security tax at about 7.65%. It's not hard to get to 25%, right? So over a 25-year working career, okay, times 25%, that's over $500,000 in taxes, okay, in your working career. When I'm going to go in retirement, most times our taxes go down because, one, we're not paying FICA tax, right? We don't pay Social Security and Medicare tax. We're actually receiving that, right, at that point. In Iowa, currently, there's no state tax on retirement income, pensions, pre-tax or qualified pre-tax, traditional IRA, 401k, 403b type money. That's not taxed on the state level. We just have federal taxes. So even if you say, your bracket's 12%, but so in using the same generality, but say we're for 25 years, right? Say we're 60 though, and we're going to get to 85, 20 years at say $40,000 because we don't need $60,000 because we got all of our stuff paid off. We don't have any debt. Retirement's a little cheaper. Okay. We need $40,000. $40,000, that's still over 25 years of income. If we have $40,000 of taxable income above Social Security, and this generality here too, 12%, still $175,000. We're looking at what, $770,000 or something like that, 720,000, almost $722,000. That's our lifetime tax bill. Okay, we don't think about that. We only think about tax once a year, whether we got money back or we pay. Look at your total lifetime tax bill. It's a huge, huge barrier is taxes if we don't understand it. We need to have a plan to minimize taxation. One of them is to minimize taxation is to better understand taxes, right? Understand the Roth, which is paying taxes now. Generally, when our income's lower, early in our working careers, or our income's lower, pay taxes now. That money grows tax deferred, comes out tax free for qualified distribution later in retirement. Or as our income goes up, maybe we do a little of both, right? But then as we get a lot of times in our last quarter of our working career, our income's maybe the highest they've ever been. And so we're at higher brackets. So then we should not do Roth. We should do a tax deferred, side of investing when we can. And then taxes, what happens? So say next year retire, you have X amount of income this year. What's your income next year you retire? Zero, right? Your income starts at zero because you have no wages, no salary, right? And then you have maybe IPERS or Social Security, and that starts kind of building that up, right? And then beyond that, eventually you have required distributions, but your taxable brackets, a lot of times, again, if we've paid off the past and not carrying that in retirement, our income drops substantially. So there's conversions you can do from a tax perspective later in retirement as well. Again, not get too far in the weeds, but more so understanding you need to have a plan. You need to have a plan for managing your lifetime tax bill and try to minimize taxes. Dependent care, utilize dependent care flex spending, right? If we've got kids in daycare, right now, if you're in a 25% tax bracket, right, you need $6,666. Okay, take 25% off of that to pay for taxes. You need $6,666 to get $5,000 after tax to go pay daycare, right? Utilizing dependent care flex spending, you take $5,000, you put it in dependent care, okay? There's no taxes to go there, and then it comes out and reimburse yourself for that, and you don't pay taxes. $5,000 of income is $5,000 of spending, right? You don't pay taxes by utilizing those dependent care flex spending or medical flex spending. Again, same thing. You can skip the taxes on that. Health savings accounts, utilizing, understanding the tax savings that you can use on that. But again, everybody's situation is different. And this is an area a lot of people need to ask for individual advice from a tax advisor, okay? Another barrier is inflation. Anybody gone to the movies, right? These are the top box office hits of these each year, right? So last year it was the Maverick Top Gun. It was about $10 a ticket, okay? Well, if you got a family of four, there's $40 pretty easy, and likely you did some popcorn and candy and stuff like that. It doesn't take a family of four much to get up to $60-$70 to go to the movies. Well, inflation, that's what it is today. Well, what was it in 2002? About half that, right? 20 years ago, it was about half that. 20 years prior to that, 40 years ago. Can you believe E.T. was 40 years ago? Right, but it was. 40 years ago, a ticket was $3, right? Compounding, right? Price doubles approximately this in this scenario about every 20 years. So 72 divided by 20 gives you about 3.6, right? That's what in it for movies inflation over the years has been about 3.6 inflation. Okay. Again, we don't feel inflation as much. We've seen it lately a heck of a lot more, but before really about a year ago, did you even think about inflation? Not a lot. No. Well, why is that? It's because it's hard to feel inflation while we're working because our income generally goes up a little bit every year, right? So it's hard to feel inflation when our income's rising. But over the long run too, here's inflation over a 20-year period, not just movie tickets, right? I mean, we've got some things are cheaper. I bought a TV, about 6 months ago, and to replace an older TV that I had, I bought the TV I had before that. It was a flat screen, but it's like $800 years and years ago, and it was heavy. I replaced that one and got a bigger one for half the price, right? About $400. It was a bigger, better TV. So some things go down. Electronics has gone down. Cell phone service has gone down. You think about, you used to pay a per minute, right? Or you pay per text. Well, now that's those services have gone down. But other things have gone up substantially, right? Housing, food, childcare. If anybody has kids, they know in school as well, college. Right? Or college ahead of us. I mean, college is exponentially growing. Medical services, right? Some of these things, if you're 60, right? On the cusp of retirement, getting close to that. Well, some of these things, you don't have to worry about child care. Don't have to worry about college. Medical care, we do, don't we? We all do. So what's your plan to beat inflation or stay ahead of inflation? You need a plan, right? Because again, the rule of 72 works in inflation as well. 72 divided by a 4% inflation, that means every 18 years, things are doubling. The cost of things are going to double. If we had inflation of even 2%, though, it's still 36 years, things are going to double. We need to factor this into our financial future. If you don't factor in inflation, you're absolutely going to miss the mark, right? So we need to have a plan to combat inflation. Again, when we look at our investing, you got to invest for the long term. You got to expose yourself to a little bit of risk, right? To beat inflation over the long run. Cash just doesn't beat inflation, right? Right now we got inflation at 6%. Our cash is, Fed fund rate or CDs right now, you can get up 4 or 5%. But that's still not where inflation is, right? And when inflation does come down, well, our guaranteed interest is going to go down too. You'll never stay ahead of inflation in cash. Okay, so you got to have a plan and factor that in. It's a big, big barrier. Number 6 is lack of discipline. This is a hard one, right? Again, 80% of personal finances is behavior. About 20% of it is knowing what to do. 80% of it, you got to go do it. The 80-20 rule applies to finances. Absolutely. It's balancing those wants and needs. Do you need it or do you want it? Right? Do you need a new car because your car doesn't work at all? Well, yeah, you need it. Or do you just want one because there's a newer car that has more bells and whistles? Needs and wants, right? But this is hard work. I mean, there's no easy way around tackling this one, right? It's work in progress, but it's absolutely a barrier when we can't balance our needs and our wants. If we buy everything we want, eventually we're not going to have the money when we're older to buy the things we need, right? So we've got to tackle this one. One way to tackle it though is to automate. Try to make things automatic, right? Automate bill paying, right? Automate contributions to savings, right? But it takes hard work. It takes self-control as well. I mean, every shiny object or, trying to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, right? That's needs and wants. It's going to be hard to get there. It's a big barrier. Okay. But also, how do you get there? What's a strategy, right? I mean, people, a lot of times in our finances, if we don't have the discipline, or maybe we feel overwhelmed, right? We disengage in our finances, but at some point, maybe we become aware that we need to be doing something, but we still kind of struggle a little bit, right? And then at some point we start taking some action and gain control. And then at some point we get to a point where we're managing our behaviors and we're really pushing in towards the future. It's kind of like eating an elephant, right? I mean, how do you do that? That's a huge goal, a huge task. How are you going to accomplish that? One bite at a time, right? You got to start with a date and break it down into steps and put it into action. And eventually that becomes reality. Procrastination is number 7. This might be the most difficult to overcome, right? No one plans to fail. We just simply fail to plan, right? So if we're not doing anything, we're not going to get anywhere. Procrastination is tough. It's easy to get that, well, I'll do it later, right? It's one of the biggest barriers that's standing in front of our financial future is not doing anything about it. Willpower, a lot of times, just isn't enough, right? Trying harder, it doesn't always work. The easiest way to beat procrastination is to take action and take action now, right? There's a lot of things that we can't control, right? And there's a lot of reasons to delay. I'll do it after kids are out of school, or I'll do it, when I get back from vacation, or I'll do it, after this, or I'll do it once my tax return, I'll do it once I get my next bonus, or I'll do it. I'll do it when the market returns, right? Or I'll do it. There's all sorts of reasons to delay, right? And there's a lot of things that we can't control. There's things that matter, right? And that's what we got to focus on. We got to focus on what we can take action on, which is our finances, right? We can take action on our personal finances. So taking action, one of the biggest ways to prevent procrastination is doing something right now. Putting something on your calendar. Okay. Part of the program that we have set up through your organization is a 30-minute conversation that's free. It's complimentary, right? There's no cost to that. Happy to just be a resource. Like I said earlier, happy to be a resource and discuss people's specific questions, discuss their goals, help them to identify the resources and what action steps they are needed to get started and make a change, right? Put something on your calendar. You can use the QR code and that'll bring you right to our calendar to schedule that free 30-minute conversation. Do it either on the phone or virtually. That's pretty easy to do. So that's something you can absolutely take action on, or put on your calendar. Hey, this weekend I'm going to round up all my details and start looking at them. At least do something. You got to put something on your calendar. Otherwise, we got procrastination. And again, a huge barrier will never get there. So, and again, after all these, we talked about these barriers today, maybe you're feeling a little uncomfortable, like you're, really not doing some of this stuff that well. Okay. And unless you're retiring tomorrow, you've got time to make some changes. Okay. Or maybe you're feeling more affirmed after doing this. Like, yeah, I've got these barriers. I've got these, right? I got my stuff together, right? Awesome. It's time to solidify what's next, right? It's time to double check the facts, right? Make sure you got it. Make sure and then understand what is the next step. Okay. No matter where you're at in your journey, we can help coach you up that next level in your financial future. Okay. So feel free to utilize us as a resource. There's also a financial plan that we can help you with as well. Again, we can do a free consultation, just help answer questions. If you've got questions, we can help you there, right? But if I need a plan, I need a roadmap. I know I need a roadmap, right? I don't have a roadmap. If you aren't confident that the plan you have in place is going to meet your goals, right? Or if you don't have that clarity that the path you're currently on is going to get you there, putting together a financial plan, a roadmap would be beneficial. And we've got a 50% discount through your organization already set up. So that is makes things, again, helps lower the barriers for cost off our hourly rate. So it usually takes a couple hours. Usually it's $200-300 ballpark for kind of a nice solid plan to identify where you should be going, where you're headed. Okay. If it's a lot more comprehensive, that gets into taxes in the state and all sorts of other stuff, it could be more. But again, for most people to get that, answer their questions that they have right in front of them right now, and put a plan together, put a roadmap together. It's not, again, it's not outrageous. So what we'll be doing there too is, again, help you with your, bring more clarity and confidence in your financial future. We're fiduciary, again, which means put your interests ahead of our own legally. Okay. We're independent. There's no product bias. We don't sell funds or products. We charge a fee for the service that we and advice that we give. Okay. And again, you guys have access to a discounted rate through your employer. And we'll help you get organized. We'll help discuss the goals and questions. We'll help identify the opportunities and strategies. And we'll help you to identify some tools, help track your progress and action steps. And again, help just coach up to that next level in your financial life. Because really doing a roadmap, that's where the rubber meets the road, right? I mean, it's where we need to take action. This is where the real work happens, because action happens when the information and advice is relevant to, again, your specific needs. You can Google, how do I do a financial plan? Right? You can Google it and figure it all out, right? But how do you take all the information and is that what right for me or the general public, right? Because everybody's situation is unique. Right? So utilize that benefit. Just shoot an email or use that calendar to schedule your consultation, and from there we can talk about the doing a financial roadmap, or just emailing us as well. So so that's pretty easy to do, because what we're looking at is trying to identify, are you on track, right? Trying to identify your goals, are you on track, right? If you're in the accumulation phase, what are the data points that point us to where we're headed, right? And then also, what does it look like when we get to the distribution phase, and how do we have a tax efficient distribution strategy? There's a lot of information out there about, we need to save more and use these tools to save. Yep, great. There's not a lot of information on how to put together an efficient, tax efficient distribution plan. But the distribution plan, that's as critical as the saving plan. Okay, so we'll help you identify both of those no matter where you're at. Okay, we'll also help you understand what you be doing at this particular stage of your life, right? If you're in your 20s or 30s, there's certain things you should be focusing on. If you're 40s or 50s, there's different things, right? At 60s, it's different. Are you getting on the on-ramp to your financial future, just kind of getting started, no matter where you're at? Okay, and no shame if you're 40 or 50 and haven't really done any of this, there's no shame there. I mean, no matter where you're at, you're just getting started. Okay, if that's the case, we'll help you there, right? Or if you're looking at, on the cusp of retirement, we'll be looking at the retirement strategy a little bit more. But again, we'll help you identify the things that you should be doing in your particular stage at where you're at. We'll help you identify those strategies, right? Should you, again, kind of looking at a different level, right? I mean, you got to first have an emergency fund, right? And then you got to look at utilizing the defined contribution plans, or retirement plans, or HSAs, and then from there paying off debt. From there, making additional contributions, or paying off other lower debt, or doing Roth or IRAs or taxable accounts. Again, there's lots of different strategies, but it's different for everybody, depending on where they're at. Right now, we've got some time for some questions as well. So if there's been anything, we can plug into the chat box there, the Q&A, or feel free to unmute and we can answer some questions today as well. So happy to stick around a little bit to answer any questions about what we covered already today. If you wanted more detail around that we didn't cover, that you hope we did, but didn't elaborate on it, we could talk about that now. And or again, if you're watching this later from a recording perspective, then if you've got questions about again, things we didn't cover or things we didn't expand on enough for your particular situation, feel free to shoot me an email. Happy to again answer questions, or if there was something that you thought we were going to cover or wanted to cover and we didn't even talk about it, again, happy to be a resource for you there as well. So again, there's a QR code to schedule your free consultation to just answer questions, right? Again, I'm happy to be a resource, happy to make myself available as a resource. We've got another program July 13th coming up that talks about the 6 ways to screw up your retirement. Okay, so we'll be specifically talking about more so about the retirement stage and getting ready for that retirement stage and how we don't mess that up, right? So anyway, again, happy to be a resource here today. I don't see anything in the chat box on my side, but if anybody has questions, again, happy to stick around a little bit and answer them. So.
All right. Thank you for your time, Scott.
You're welcome.
As always, Scott's email is there on the screen. If you have other questions, you're more than welcome to email wellness@iowacounties.org and we can get those over to Scott as well. If nothing else pops up, hope everyone has a great evening.
Thanks, Molly. Take care.
Thank you for your time.
You bet.